5, 3, 2, 1. And we're live. Oh wait, welcome to another Haunted Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Kyler.
I'm your co-host, Ashley.
And now we are burning our eyes out in front of a UV light because why not? Why not?
Everything glows.
Right. Anywho, so what do you want to talk about?
Did you want to start with our original ideas or what happened right before this podcast?
We can go with the original ideas. Where'd my phone go? Oh, it's right here. Look at that, I found it. Anyway, you want to start that off?
Thought you had all the ideas.
You're the one that did all the research. You're better, bud.
The research on our instrument.
Sure. Start with that.
I mean, we don't have like all conclusive here, but we can.
Well, I don't think we need all conclusive. I don't know where that stupid webpage went. Oh no! Oh, it was under ITC, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I can't remember where it went.
Look in your history.
Nope, just kidding, I found it. So, start us off. Tell us what is what we're talking about.
So, we are talking a little bit about one of our instruments, the ghost box, or better known as Frank's box.
SB7 is what we have.
Yes, we have the version that was made right after Frank's box. It was the supposed more upgraded version. Now, let me pull out my research here.
Well, before we get into that, do you want me to go off on what it is we're looking at?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're looking into ITC, which is an umbrella term which refers to all forms of spirit communication using any kind of electrical instrument. The best known method of ITC is electronic voice phenomenon, or as we like to call it, EVP. Not EMF, right, Ben?
Yeah, I'm still learning terms.
You'll get there, I promise. I did the same thing. That was when I was like 14. Anyway, the term instrumental transcommunication was coined in the 1970s by Professor Ernst, say it with me, Ernst Zenkowski. Sounds like a Jewish guy.
What a mouthful.
Right? A scientist with a background in experimental physics who went on to conduct experiments to try to find out the source of unexplained voices on audio tapes. This is of course known as EVP. You know, I think there's a video of that somewhere too. Like it was a college, one of those college experiments where they were like, oh my god, there's voices on this, but we don't know where they came from. Dun dun dun.
Spooky.
The term ITC isn't limited to audio devices and encompasses any communication between living and spirits or other supernatural entities through any electronic device. This can be anything from tape recorders through to computers, and in most recent years, ghost hunting gadgets such as smartphone apps. Now, I am probably the biggest skeptic when it comes to smartphone apps. I freaking hate that ghost radar thing.
Well, I mean, and half of them have a preset dictionary to pull words from. And don't get me wrong, like, it's a pretty large dictionary, but depending on what you're doing can either, I guess, help in that sense, or it can be completely random. It just really kind of depends on the setting you're in.
Yes, that makes sense. So ITC. There's somebody else there.
No, I think it's just people walking by.
No.
It's like 80 degrees in here, so we have both doors open.
ITC also covers visual forms of communication, normally conducted with the use of a television and video camera feedback loop, which creates the Drost effect, where a picture recursively appears within itself or simply by observing patterns in static. One famous example of this occurred on the day of the funeral of EVP researcher Frederick Jorgensen. Oh, he's German. His college had turned his television set to an empty channel so that it just showed static, and he claims that Jorgensen's face appeared on the screen. You ever see, what movie was it, Poltergeist?
Yes.
Oh, they're here! She's like staring into the static TV, all creepy like.
Yes.
Or if you saw the sequel, they're back. Pretty creepy little child. You know what's really sad about that movie though?
What?
So did you know that's one of those cursed sets?
Seems to be a lot of horror movies that end up having cursed sets.
It was Poltergeist, Exorcist, Paranormal Activity. and,
Exorcist was pretty bad.
Nightmare on Elm Street, the last one I think. There were claims that Freddy was actually trying to kill the cast in their dreams, which is the inspiration to Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Damn, that would suck.
Well, you've seen the sixth one, right?
I don't think I have, surprisingly enough.
So the sixth one, I didn't like it. I'll be honest. The sixth one, all the actors are playing themselves. Like Heather Lightcamp, I think her name is. I'm sorry if you've never heard this. Robert Englund plays Robert Englund, and the whole plot of that movie is Freddy is this horror icon that people are so afraid of that he actually comes out of the movie and starts killing. Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Wait, was that the one where they went to the schoolhouse? Which one am I thinking about?
The schoolhouse.
Yeah, they went to, it was like this schoolhouse to like, I guess kind of give background on who Freddy, like, where he came from.
No, he came from a boiler room.
Well, like, he was a janitor or something beforehand.
Yeah. That's the remake.
Is that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
where
thinking about.
it's played by either Jesse or Jamie. I can't remember his name. He was an alright Freddy though. He was more creepy. Like
Yeah.
he was a child toucher. That's got me. Whereas Robert Englund's Freddy was an actual evil entity who killed children in their dreams.
But then again, I am always for the OP fight, or I was going to say Five Nights at Freddy's for some reason. I am an OP Freddy lover. So, very first Nightmare on Elm Street. Of course, you know, the bloodbath scene.
Oh, yeah. Did you know that was Johnny Depp's first role?
Really?
That was his first role, like, ever. And then after that,
No,
I
yeah,
think,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it was 21 Jump Street after that, as a TV series.
Huh.
Yeah, he was the original Jump Street boy. Which is... Oh, wait, have you seen 21 Jump Street, the movie?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so you know about the cameos then?
Yes.
The very end?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I was like, Johnny Depp, he's replaying his role. Anyway, so off topic. So back to Jorgensen. Jorgensen himself had gained notoriety in the EVP world after he captured audio recordings of two voices while recording bird songs in the wild. One was a male, the other was the voice of his mother. Ooh, spooky. If I ever heard my mother come through a ghost box, you know what she'd say?
What?
Did you clean that? And I'd be like, no.
Very spooky being since your mother is still alive.
That's why it'd be spooky. Dun, dun, dun. Love you, Mom. Anyway, he conducted his research 2 decades before the term ITC was coined in the 70s, but the field of research dates back even further. The first known experimentation of spirit communication using electronic voices was conducted by a priest named Roberto Mendel de Mora in 1910. He used a small box-like device that he could speak into and voices would answer back. That sounds like a phone. 1-800, how is your spirit doing? The inner workings of his box were kept secret. Why? Just why?
That's a lot of stuff we don't understand.
So, tell me your secrets, Magic Man. I want to know. The inner workings of his box were kept secret, which is a little suspicious, as Lindell was a pioneer in developing voice transmission technologies. One of the best known names involved in early ITC experimentation was the American inventor and businessman who has been described as America's greatest inventor of all time. Who is that, man?
Thomas Edison,
Thomas
which we will hear
freaking
more
Edison.
about here in a second.
Ooh, foreshadowing. In the 1920s, it's believed that he was working on what was called Edison's telephone to the dead. Think we could, like, I don't know, pick one of those up somewhere?
No, because it was actually never made.
Ooh, conspiracy. But his work was never completed before his death in 1931. Probably should have finished that sentence now that I think about it.
Yeah.
The device was based on the inventor's firm belief that consciousness lives on after death. He is quoted as saying, "If our personality survives, then it is strictly logical or scientific to assume that it retains memory, intellect, other faculties, and knowledge that we acquire on this earth. Therefore, if we can evolve an instrument so delicate as to be affected by our personality as it survives in the next life, such an instrument which made available ought to record something." Ooh, strangeness. Somebody would say, "Hi, strangeness." Ooh, I said it again. Dun, dun, dun. One of the most fascinating cases of early ITC was demonstrated by Marcello Bakshi. It's Italian, don't judge me. Starting in 1974, over a period of about 20 years, Bakshi gave public performances of his spirit communication technology to an audience somewhere in Greece. Somewhere in Italy. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. Can you imagine though? Alright, everybody gather around. What are you doing? We're gonna talk to the dead. Bruh.
I mean, especially back in that time.
Bruh. Are you a witch? No. Are you a vegan? No. Do you smell potpourri stuff and then try and sell them online via Etsy? No. Okay. Anyway, audience members were given the chance to hear the voices of their deceased loved ones. Oh my God, can you imagine? Great grandpa Earl be like, "I put the money in the safe and I buried it underneath the floorboards." But my mother would still nag at me that the dishes weren't clean to her standards.
Yeah, I'd be tearing up all them floorboards.
Wow, that's what you got from that?
I mean, with today's economy, it could really help.
Oh boy, that is scarily accurate. Many skeptics tried to debunk Bocce's work, and the experiments were carried out in controlled conditions, but the results were the same, even when the radio was isolated inside a Faraday cage, which blocks all external radio and electrical signals. You ever seen a Faraday cage?
I have not.
They're very interesting. I'll show you when we're done with this.
Okay.
They're kind of cool. Today, ITC is more actively investigated by parapsychologists and spiritualists than ever before. Totally not looking into the camera going, "Oh, you don't say." Long gone are the days of secretive devices. More modern paranormal investigators can get their hands on plenty of commercially available gadgets. Oh. You mean like the SB7, which we own and got to use tonight,
Yes, we did.
as seen in the intro, or heard in the intro? Sure.
How are we
Anyway.
gonna fit that in?
I don't know. Editing. Not that I ever do editing. We'll figure it out. First of these modern devices was the Frank's box, named after its creator, Frank Sinatra. No, I'm kidding. Frank.
Could
Sorry.
you imagine?
What's his name, babe?
Oh, I have it on here somewhere.
No, what'd you call him?
What did I call him?
You were like, it's Frank something.
Yeah, it's Frank something.
Something.
Yes, something
Something.
with a P.
Something. Say.
Something.
Which he developed in 2002. There are many similar devices available on the market today. They're now generally referred to as ghost boxes or spirit boxes. The most common being the PSP-7 and PSP-11 spirit boxes. Now the SB-11, we have the SB-7, which, you know, it's itty bitty. It's almost like a little Walkman that sweeps through the radio stations, right?
Yeah.
SB-11 has 2 channels. Did you know that?
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, like the SB7 kind of has 2 channels, but it works
No,
off
no.
like AM, FM radio.
no, I'm not talking AM, FM. I mean, it's got 2 channels, 2 settings for AM, FM.
Not a sweep forward?
Well, it does forward and backward just like the SB-7 does.
Okay.
But the cool thing about the SB-11 is you can isolate it. So instead of hearing that, which sounds like someone having a stroke or choking, you can isolate the radio stations so you don't hear the radio stations. It's almost like a noise gate on a guitar pedal for guitars.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The SB-11 also has a kind of like a thermometer built in. It's a digital thermometer. So if it gets hotter in the room or if it gets colder, there's a little gauge at the very bottom of it and it switches. It'll light up depending on what changed. Like if it got hotter, it'll go pink, pink, pink. For all the audio listeners, I moved my hand to the left. If it gets colder, it goes to the right.
Okay.
But it goes in like it goes up to like 11 intervals per change. The SB-11 is also a little bit bigger too. Paranormal Files uses it a lot. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but they've used it in the past.
I mean, ever since Frank's box, they have been kind of, I guess, basically they just took Frank's box and they just made it more modern, more able to isolate different sounds.
Do you know why?
Why?
So most of the gadgets all derive from one product. So like the EMF meter, never supposed to be a paranormal thing. That's actually a safety device.
I can see it.
Like the compass, you know, the way the needle points. If an EMF field goes near a compass, that compass will just spin or it'll be wrong.
Huh.
Yeah. There's one Huff Paranormal. He came out in the spirit box. I freaking hate that guy. He's like, oh, Michael Jackson just died. I think I can contact his spirit. Listen to this. Then you hear come through his box. And I'm like, dude, first off, that is super disrespectful. Secondly, if you're faking this, I hope the family finds out and sues you.
I mean, I think it was the next day after Queen Elizabeth died, he tried to get in contact with her as if she was going to go all the way across the pond just to talk to this one guy.
Yeah, one dude. No one special, just one dude. But like all these boxes, there's actual devices that are just specifically radios with dials. They're like $100. It's really stupid, outrageous. You can buy them online, and the way it works is it's a manual spirit box. I've seen them, and I have to ask why. So instead of like hitting a button for it to sweep, you just turn the dial. Like if you want to go really fast, you turn really fast. Or if you want to be really slow about it, you can do it really slowly. You can do it backwards, forwards. It's stupid. I don't know why anybody would buy that. Like, just go out and buy an SB7. You can't go wrong with the SB7. The SB11, a lot of people are like, does it work though? Does it? And even I'm like, no. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know, back to the whole thing where people don't understand a lot of things, so.
Well, it's like necrophonic.
Yeah.
I want to say that works. I really, really do. I see a lot of the big YouTubers like, oh my god, this app, sexy. And I'm like, oh yeah, it looks good, but does it work? Tell them about Spirit Talker.
So, Spirit Talker is roughly $4, and it is used for both Android and iOS devices. And basically, it's a lot like an SB7, without all of the radio stuff. So it
No.
has its own
It's the
dictionary.
obelisk.
What?
The obelisk, or obelisk, yeah. It just pulls from an electronic dictionary. It's not like the ghost box.
Yes and no. And the reason why I'm gonna say that is because, yeah, it has its own dictionary to pull from, but depending on what scenario that you're in, and a lot of the times that we've used it, it's kind of related to what scenario that you are trying to get out of the situation.
Oh, you mean it's an ITC device?
Pretty much.
Oh, look at that, I just connected right back to the original story.
Now, before we continue,
Oh.
where did your research on the ITC device, what website did that come from?
IggyPop.com. I'm not kidding, it's called IggyPop.com. I don't know how reliable that is, but I thought the info was pretty cool.
And that's okay, I'm not sure how reliable my sources are, but from the research that I got, I have two different websites to give out, and that is skepticalinquirer.com and also panoramic.com. Now, going into what we call a ghost box, it has a lot of different names. There's EVP recorder, EVP research device, there's spirit box, there's ghost box, and then there's the ever so popular Frank's box.
Can we get the Frank's box?
Well, I wouldn't say you could get an actual Frank's box because there was only 180 ever made by Frank himself.
So we'd get a knockoff.
Pretty much, he would lend his devices out to people who wanted them. And to kind of bring up that, he lended it to a guy named Christopher Moon.
MOON?
Yes.
That was his real name.
Yes, it is.
You're telling me a spiritualist had the last name Moon.
Not a spiritualist, a scam artist. This
Now it
guy,
makes sense.
this guy would go around and he would basically charge people $100 for an hour. And this is at the time where $100 was a lot of money. So
What
if
year
you're
was it?
year,
Yeah.
I don't have a year, but it is because Frank's box was made, and they didn't ever give a year on what. Nope, it was invented in 2002, so I wouldn't say long after that. I'd maybe place 2006, 2008. This guy would charge $100 for people to get in contact with their lost loved ones that had just died. Now, the thing about Christopher Moon is he would tell people that he was the only one who could interact with this box.
Typical.
Nobody else could hear what he was hearing through the box.
Like a fortune teller.
Pretty much.
I'm hearing the spirits talking through me. No, you're not, lady. Shut up.
And that depends on what person that you go to, especially nowadays. You can definitely tell the people who are just pretty much scamming you and the people who are actually legit.
Wait, people still do this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Could I do this?
You could.
I'm
You would
not
be
gonna charge
more.
people.
You would be more legit than a lot of people because
I'm still not charging people.
the problem is if you give yourself, like, give your information to basically a psychic before you walk in, then absolutely don't believe them. But if you walk into that store and you have not given them any information prior, and they start guessing things about you that, you know, like not many people or if anybody knew about you, then shit, sit down. Have fun. Like, for real, because that is going to be one insightful person to talk to.
That would be really interesting. I've always wanted to get. Can we get a psychic on the show?
I would love to.
Wouldn't that be a cool segue? Just be like, hey, what's that phone number? 1-800-GET-PSYCHIC now? That'd be cool, right? Like,
That
just
would.
have a psychic on the, like, on speed dial.
But basically, yes, Christopher Moon was your typical scam artist. He was meant to give Frank's box back to Frank, but instead of giving it back, he used it for his own money.
That's fucked up.
What a douche, right? Now, for those who don't know, a spirit box uses raw radio frequencies. A ghost
Wait.
box,
Tell them what raw radio frequency is.
like AM, FM stuff.
It's just stuff on the air, right?
And this kind of goes back to how Frank kind of gotten interested in creating a Frank's box. He was super into listening to the radio at the time, and he would kind of experiment, like you said, with some of the things that people sell nowadays. He would take the radio and he would scan through the channels really fast, and sometimes really slow, just kind of depends.
Wait, he did that himself?
Yeah, that's kind of how he came up with the idea. And
That's cool.
he basically put that into one box that you could, at the time, I do believe you would have to physically switch through the channels yourself. I'm pretty sure there was a scan button. I mean, it's 2002. Come on now. Like, radio's been around forever at this point.
I used to scan a lot when I was a kid. So I didn't like switching to, because you know, you get like 3 frequencies away from a radio, and then it's like all fuzzy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I did the scan button.
But yeah, he would use both AM and FM to try and communicate with people. And the funny part about it is one of the first things that he ever heard from his own Frank's box was that he had spirits that believed that he was a purple princess from a distant galaxy.
An alien?
Yeah, he believed that he was like kind of talking to aliens at first.
You know what's really funny?
What?
We're in purple light.
Go UVE. But so to kind of continue on that, a ghost box is a little bit different. It takes environmental cues and software that also uses AM FM frequencies to kind of communicate, and that's where you get into stuff like the SB11.
What do you mean?
Like, say we're out in Sabino, it can also pick up stuff like animals walking around, animal sounds, or even the trees around you, stuff like that. It takes all of those noises, puts it through a box, and you kind of get your own cues out of this.
So you can pre-program it?
No, it basically just kind of like, if you had a really, really, really sensitive camera
Okay.
that picked up every single sound around you.
Okay.
And that kind of goes along with how a lot of people kind of believe, where is it at? So a lot of people, in terms of EVP or electric voice phenomena, they kind of claim it to be nothing more than background noise or electronic interference. And that's where you kind of get in trouble with EMF readers too. You put them next to something electrical and you can pick up an EMF because it goes off of electric, magnetic stuff.
Cell phones, microwaves, routers, anything that gives off an electronic signal.
Pretty much. And that's also why if anybody's ever using Spirit Talker on their phone, it's kind of recommended to put your phone on airplane mode, because not only does it not pick up any interference from around you, it's not like your phone's not going to pick up interference. I mean, it's a phone, but airplane mode kind of censors that just a little bit, just enough for you to get less like bullshit coming through.
That makes sense.
So there's other people that also believe that EVP is basically voices from beyond the grave.
I believe it.
Now, this does work by white noise. It has EVP software, and it also works by radio frequencies, which is the original, what we call the Frank's box. That's what that purely kind of went off of, and it's switching so fast between the AM and FM and scanning the channels, that's where you get your white noise.
See, mine doesn't switch between AM and FM. You have to hit the button for it to be on AM or hit the button to be on FM.
Well, yeah, and you'd have to, it was the same thing with the Frank's box too. You can set it to AM, you can set it to FM. With AM, you're gonna get more talk shows than you are radio stuff.
Yeah, nobody really uses AM anymore.
That is true.
You
Though
know-
there is some very interesting talk shows that go on at like 2 o'clock in the morning on AM radio.
Well, Coast to Coast Paranormal used to be on AM. I don't know if you've ever heard of Coast to Coast, but they're like a huge paranormal radio.
I have not, surprisingly.
I'm
I
sure that
didn't
is.
really play around with AM too much in my younger years. I was much more of a music fiend.
Oh, no. This was way before our time. This is like the 70s and 80s.
Oh, okay.
The original guy passed away, unfortunately.
Sad.
Yeah.
So, Frank himself, we have a general date of birth and death, but it doesn't really go into too many details, per se. He was born roughly in 1953, and from what I could gather, in September of 2014, he suffered from a heart attack and died.
Think anyone's gotten in contact with him?
I don't think anybody's actually tried, I suppose.
That's really sad.
Shit, maybe Huff Paranormal can.
Oh, don't even get me started on paranormal. Oh my god.
But he was definitely a known dog lover. He was also a very quirky guy.
Was he really?
Yeah, he had a great sense of humor.
I wonder if there's any videos of his on YouTube. Like him with a Frank's box. You know how cool that would be to watch?
I'm sure there's something out there. I mean,
He doesn't sound like a very famous person. Sounds like he kind of got pushed aside.
pretty much. And that kind of goes along with pretty much anybody who's ever created or worked on any of the paranormal devices that we use today, because
That's
so many people don't believe in catching things from the afterlife on pretty much anything.
Well, they do more
because-
so than they did back then.
Again, we don't understand a lot of it. And to this day, we don't understand a lot of it. We just kind of go with the flow, pretty much.
It's frustrating.
It is.
It's really
It is very frustrating. Especially when you have people that are so interested to learn the truth.
Yeah.
But he actually, he got interested in EVP when he first heard about it. And this kind of goes back to Thomas Edison himself.
The Thomas Edison?
The Thomas Edison.
Not the guy who invented electricity. Benjamin Franklin.
I was gonna say, that's not the same dude.
Okay. I want to make sure that's clear.
So from 1890 to 1920, Thomas Edison was looking into basically stuff like the afterlife, because roughly like 1800s, people were doing seances, they were playing with Ouija boards,
Spiritual movement.
and just a lot of that stuff.
What year was this?
1890 to 1920.
Yeah, it was right around the time the Ouija board was invented.
Now, this kind of all started around 1890 era, and he wanted to create what is called the telephone to the dead.
This is Thomas Edison's, right?
This is Thomas Edison.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the only problem with this is that we have no evidence of him ever creating a patent no notes of him ever having a thought of this, and nothing ever came of his want to create a device to the dead. And depending on who you ask, there was a magazine that went out in 1920 where he had admitted himself that it was all fake.
Dun, dun, dun.
And honestly, I mean, I could see it. The dude was very influential for his time. So even today, with people basically doing things for what they call clout. Yes, I'm a boomer.
Ew, you just use the term clout.
Yeah, I know. But basically he did it to catch attention. And I sort of believe it, I sort of don't. I want to believe that he tried creating something, but was never able to due to his old age.
What was it called? The phone to the dead?
Yeah, the telephone to the dead.
Sorry, I'm looking it up. I want to see a picture of this thing.
You're fine. It was probably pretty big knowing the technology back in the day.
It was also called the wind phone.
The wind phone?
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, that's the Japanese phone box. Never mind. Yeah, I can't find a picture of it anywhere.
But basically, so while you're using an EVP recorder, things to not do in order to get your best experience. So, of course, you avoid recording near any electrical source. The more remote you are, out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, the better. And you also don't want to do low battery, because obviously a low battery can fuck up a lot of stuff. It can even play with your flashlight if you have a low battery as well. The point is to be as still as possible, and I see this a lot in different people who create videos on YouTube of their ghost hunting experiences, where they take the EVP recorder, they hold it in their hand the entire time, and they just kind of like situate, move themselves back and forth. You know, they're trying to get themselves comfortable, but they can't, kind of thing. And the more you move this around, it's going to pick up every single sound that is around you, and more. Now, the one thing you can do with the EVP recorder, which kind of helps a lot, is put an external microphone on. Now, a lot of these EVP recorders have internal microphones, but the external ones kind of isolate the sound of you moving too much. I mean, even if I were to move this microphone, it would create a lot of noise, to be honest, because it's a very sensitive microphone. But that is pretty much all the information that I have on the history of the ghost box, basically. I was going to do more history on the SB7 before this episode, but we decided to do an episode for shits and giggles here, so.
Do you also know what Thomas Edison created?
What else?
Alkaline storage battery, the phonograph, the movie camera and viewer, and a light bulb. Oh, and the first telephone, the actual telephone, to contact the living, not the dead.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the living
it's a
one, not the
automatic
dead one.
telegraph. But yeah, he invented the phonograph. You know what we call a phonograph now? Vinyl records.
Oh, yeah. It took a minute for me to put two and two together for some reason.
Yeah.
It was like 2 a.m. and my brain's half working, so.
Well, it was originally wax paper and a stylus.
Interesting.
Right? And goodness, Thomas Edison. He was above me all this time. Yeah, I just did a quick Google search and I was like, huh, imagine that. And we can thank him for the paranormal. Go Thomas Edison.
At least somewhat. I know he was kind of interested in it at the time because it was a very popular topic of that time. being that, you know, the Ouija board was just created, everyone's like, ooh, a way to actually talk with the dead.
Do you know who invented the Ouija board?
I do not.
Parker and Sons.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, they made like Life, Monopoly. I think Hasbro bought them out.
Yeah, originally meant to be used as a game board, just like everything else.
It was the talking board game.
And so everybody decided, hey, so spirits, energy, talk.
The Luigi board?
The Luigi board.
The quiche board. Can I buy one from a witch or vegan? Can I make one?
You can make one on a piece of paper if you wanted to.
See, I don't believe that. I feel like it wouldn't have the same effect. They say you can use like a cardboard and like a penny. I've seen the penny one,
Yeah.
and I'm still real skeptical on it. And I've seen glass, but everyone's like, oh, if you lift up the glass, the spirit will escape. I'm like, unlikely.
I mean,
Okay.
that's the same theory as a person
Taking your
removing their
hands
hands
off
off.
the
Yeah.
legit, I don't know about that. I mean, I've used the Ouija board since I was like 14. The only thing I can really say about the Ouija board that could or could not be real is who you talk to.
Yeah.
And then there's the psychology side of it where it's like, oh, well, maybe it's your subconscious. And everyone's like, oh, maybe I should ask something that only I would know. But if you're the one touching it, is it you giving the answer or is it something else?
I mean, regardless, with a lot of people not being able to get in touch with their subconscious.
Ooh, this is getting weird. Conscious, is that you? And you just hear yourself go, maybe. That'd be weird. I love ITC devices. I think in the right hands, they could be useful. I honestly love my spirit box. I think that is the best tool that we have. I mean, what were we doing before this podcast other than waiting for Windows 10 to update like they do every 24 hours?
So we were going to start this podcast like, God, I think it was 4 or 5 hours before this, but we decided to throw on the spirit box beforehand just to see what we would get out of it. And honestly, I ended up hearing a lot of different things about Sabino.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And, like, you know, we did the obvious, like, who's with us? Is there anybody who wants to talk? And we heard Sabino and stuff like, please help. Basically, we were being called out to Sabino to go and basically kind of investigate, because before this we had went to Sabino with one of our paranormal investigators, Jeff, which he still has yet to make an appearance on the podcast, but
We'll have them eventually.
I'm off on Saturdays now, so there will be a lot more going on in terms of paranormal stuff on Saturdays. So after much hesitation, we decided to make our way out, and honestly, it's like maybe 10-15 minutes from the
Wait,
way
you're talking about
where we
Sabino?
live. Yeah.
I wouldn't say we decided. I mean, more like we were called out, and we had no choice.
Pretty much.
When a spirit calls and they ask for help, we answer. Or something like that.
Shoot, when a spirit calls, when a human calls, we answer both.
That's fair. That's very fair. Very fair.
But so we go out to Sabino, and usually Sabino has a very peaceful feel for us. But as soon as, like, there's a creek that you pass right before you get to the Sabino recreational area. And as soon as we hit that creek, it just felt kind of heavy.
It got heavy quick.
Like, it was more of a gut heavy than a heart heavy, which is a very different feel when it comes to spiritual paranormal stuff.
You know, I was talking to someone about this. A lot of like paranormal stuff happens when we record.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really believe in it too much, but it's like,
Hey, I mean, if you want to point it out, by all means.
I mean, to me it just seems coincidental.
I mean, being as we talk to spirits almost on a daily.
That's very fair. I mean, you'll be like, hey, let's go to bed. And I'll be like, hold on a sec, come on, Spirit Talker. And we'll sit there for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Then we'll land in bed, and guess what? Spirit Talker's right next to us, still going off.
Yeah. And a lot of the time when we throw on Spirit Talker, we don't really even ever kind of like call anything out or talk to what's around us. There was at one point where I threw on Spirit Talker and I was caught in the middle of a conversation between two ghosts.
Two spirits, mostly ghosts.
Spirits, my bad.
Sounds derogatory. I don't know why. It just I've always considered the term ghost to be just derogatory. Like you don't say, hey, look, you're part Indian, right? Like, no, part Native American.
Yeah, I mean, there is two different kinds of supposed Indians.
Well, Indians are oh yeah, whereas Native Americans, not like that. I know some.
Depends on where you go.
No, the Tohono O'odham.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually down near where Kurt lives. I'll point it out to you when we go down that way tomorrow. The Tohono O'odham people,
Mm-hmm.
they have at the casino. Once a year they'll all gather at the casino, and there's a lot of them. Nicest people I've ever met in Tucson.
I honestly have yet to meet a Native American tribe or person that is mean. I'm sure they're out there,
No,
but you
some
know.
of them are really freaking rude.
Oh yeah.
But the Tohono O'odham people, oh my god. So, mind you, the Spanish culture has kind of gone into theirs, and they've kind of mixed with that. But when you sit down with a Tohono O'odham person who's actually from the reservation, you'll know. They're some of the kindest, nicest people I've ever met, and being able to work with them as much as I have is so cool. I mean, I got to work the soundboard for their show and the lights board because we built it when I was building stages. They're really nice people. I had one family almost adopt me.
Well, and I only have one other experience with Native American, and I do believe it was the Sioux tribe. It was
Sioux?
It was in South Dakota.
That makes sense.
So we had went up there for a mission trip, and that was one of the first Native American paranormal experiences that I had. Our whole mission up there was to kind of help them get their church back in working order, because there's a few broken windows, the grass hadn't been mowed for quite a while, and basically it just kind of needed your very basic cleanup. And this is right next to one of the poorest counties in the U.S. And you can definitely see it because we went through it, and there was a bunch of people standing on the side of the road in what looks like this almost like abandoned town, and a lot of them were homeless. The people that we worked with at the church, they ended up making us Indian tacos.
What's an Indian taco?
So it's like if you were to get a chalupa from Taco Bell,
Ooh.
those really thick shells on the chalupa,
Yeah.
basically take that and put it in a fryer.
I want Taco Bell.
So like it's kind of like a naturally made kind of ballooned up taco looking thing, but it's really, really good. I haven't had a taco since then that tasted like that. That was amazing. But as I was cutting the grass, at one point our the mower that they had ended up breaking. It wasn't cutting grass too well because the blades needed sharpened, so we were supposed to go and get another mower, but they didn't have them in stock at the time, so
Did you call Jason?
kind of,
You know who I'm referring to? Jason Momoa? He's
no,
got
kind of,
Momoa.
honestly, we ended up picking up, I'm gonna call it a scythe, but it's not a scythe. Basically, it's this single blade that's attached to this handle, and
A chainsaw?
no, it's not motor operated.
Oh, okay.
It's like the really, really old, before they even had the push mower kind of stuff.
Yeah, it had the rotating blade.
Yeah, this one, you swung it from side to side, and it cut the grass.
Fuck that. It'll take forever.
It honestly did. It was kind of rewarding though. While I was cutting the grass in the back of the church, I looked over and there was a hill right behind the church. And I seen, the way he appeared first was, it was this, I couldn't tell you if he was a warrior or not, but he had a headdress on and he was on a horse. And he was just kind of looking at the land. He was looking over the land, and this nation is like maybe 5 minutes away from the Badlands in South Dakota.
What's Badland?
The Badlands is like, how do I put it? Kind of like a shittier Grand Canyon.
Oh, it's that dark place and you must never go, Simba.
Pretty much like in the Lion King movie, it would have looked almost exactly like that place.
Oh, okay.
It was a bunch of canyons. It's mainly like really dark dirt kind of stuff, stone.
Wendigo territory.
But there's people walking by. But so basically, the entire time I was up there, I felt very at peace, and I have yet to step onto a reservation that doesn't feel like it has more of a peaceful feeling than the rest of the land I've ever been in.
We'll never go on Cherokee land.
That is fair. Back in the day, Cherokee was definitely known to be a little mean.
No. Kaylin came from Cherokee lineage. I don't deal
But
with
Cherokee also has quite a bit of lore to them as well.
They can have all the lore they want. I respect it. I don't touch it. I don't screw with it. Hell no. I have dealt with it firsthand, and I don't want to touch that stuff again. Their myths and legends are real. I fully believe that.
Oh, I could believe it.
They have like a whole freaking book on that stuff, and no, I won't touch it. Too scary for me.
Oh, and that's also why we don't really investigate native lands too much. Out here in Arizona, it's kind of unavoidable depending on where you're going, but so far have yet to have a negative experience with native lands.
Well, what's the Tucson natives? Do you remember? Start with an H.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
You
I would
gotta
have to
Google
Google
it.
search that.
I'll Google search it while you talk.
But yeah, basically, we were called out to Sabino. We show up there and it has this kind of heavy gut feel. And whatever was out there towards the end of our trip, it said something about a demon there. And one of the first times that I had went to Sabino, when I first got here, we had gotten into contact with a spirit named Willow. Now, we believe Willow to be a nature spirit mostly, mainly because the name Willow also comes from willow tree, which is about rebirth.
I found it. The Ho'okum. It's the first tribe in Tucson.
Yeah, that's roughly the area.
Yep, about 2,300 years ago. The Sabino Canyon, it said that the ridges, you know how you walk through the canyon and there's those tall hills?
Yes.
There used to be watchtowers up there. Allegedly. I don't know if that's true, but they have signs depicting it and the museums talk about it.
I mean, I could imagine some of them are still like abandoned watchtowers, but mostly they have radio towers nowadays.
You know, watchtowers, as in they watch the canyon for intruders,
Oh, okay.
like actual watchtowers. You gotta remember, this is 2,300 years ago.
Right.
I don't think they had radio towers back then. But yeah, along the Santa Cruz River is where they were at. All over Tucson Basin, as archaeologists have found sites around there. Google it. Yeah, I didn't know it's real. I found it on Google. Oh, okay.
I mean, definitely watch your sources, but for the most part, I really don't think that you're going to find too much made-up stories in terms of Native history, unless if you're reading from like a history book, because, you know, they censor that shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot.
But, so we got to Sabino, and there's this one hill that you go over. It's the first hill, and so far we have yet to have a bad spirit kind of follow us over that hill. But we had Willow meet us at the median, which starts right before you get to the hill. And she kind of brought everybody with her. There was a tribe leader that we got in contact at the same time with Willow, and they are great communicators. Did you put that light video up on YouTube?
The flashlight one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find the flashlight video on YouTube, and that was just us kind of like messing around, seeing if they would actually kind of mess with this light. And this light that we use is super, super sensitive. You have to untwist it to a certain point to where basically any spirit can twist it either way. They can either turn it off or they turn it on. It's definitely like a yes and no kind of thing. But they were pretty great in using energy to kind of turn it off and on. They made it flash a few times for us. We got one or two of those times on camera. But kind of the whole time we were there, we weren't sure if we were talking to Willow or if we were talking to the evil spirit that was there. But by the end of the trip, I kind of sprinkled lavender, and there was another herb that I had used. I can't remember the name of it, but its main purpose is to kind of carry prayers. And of course, lavender is for stuff like cleansing and all that stuff. And each time I go out to Sabino, I try to do something along the lines of using those herbs to, I guess, kind of bring peace to the land. Kind of inconclusive if the demon had left or not, but if it didn't, we definitely weakened it to a point where it was more manageable for her beings, as it kind of feels like she protects the land.
Talking about Willow?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she does have an interesting vibe to her that I didn't feel before, but now it's kind of weird, especially since we're in Tucson, not in Sabino Canyon. Sabino Canyon's like 15, 20 minutes away. And
I mean, relatively close compared to a lot of places.
yeah, she keeps visiting. However, tonight I was kind of curious on if maybe she was talking from Sabino Canyon, which would be really interesting to see, especially because I've never heard, well, I guess that would be considered like remote viewing, except this was like remote communication through the ghost box, which I don't know if that's possible or what, but it'd be really interesting to prove.
So, as we were leaving, we kind of looked back, and just over the hill, we had seen this kind of like brown wispy aura kind of thing.
I tried to get it on camera.
I just looked at what brown kind of means in psychology. And in psychology, it has a sense of strength and reliability,
Well, that's really interesting.
which definitely kind of goes along with the character that Willow is.
Well, now I'm even more curious about her. But we'll get more details once we get more info.
A lot of emotions that come from a brown aura are friendly, welcoming, honest, sincere, and genuine.
Yeah, that sounds like Willow to a T.
And she was very curious when we first got in contact with her, because I do believe Kyler's probably one of the only living people that she has actually been able to communicate, send images to, and all of that. We kind of got a sense of what he ended up driving out one of the first times that he went to Sabino. And we've kind of narrowed it down to, I do believe it's called a Yishi, something like that.
If you believe
But
that stuff.
it's from Slavic origin, and it's basically this kind of spirit that can either be as small as a blade of grass or like as tall as a radio tower, if not taller. Just kind of depends on how much energy it has and all of that. This was, I do believe it's the Flesh Pedestrian episode you guys did.
Yup.
So if you
That's
go
the
back
first
and
one.
listen to the Flesh Pedestrian episode, you can kind of get a sense of what exactly it was that they felt while they were out there. There was definitely a sense of Kyler being pulled to different places while he was there.
Paxton would say I was possessed. I don't think I was possessed. I think it was more of a influenced, which is very close to possession, but I don't think there was possession involved.
So how would you differentiate the two for those who don't know?
Possession is straight up, you're not in control. Like body movement, talking, everything's gone. You're just empty. Whereas influence is kind of like you're a video game character and someone's pressing your buttons, but you're doing movements. Like that
Interesting.
makes- I was an actual sim in a game of Sims. And someone was playing as me, which is really weird to think about. But the doppelganger throws me off.
Yeah.
That really throws me off. And that I don't have an explanation for. Other than that it was a doppelganger. But we will see.
And Sabino Canyon's kind of like an ongoing thing for now. Being as there is a lot of active spirits out there, there's more than just the tribe that we met, there's more than Willow. We always get quite a few older names when we get out there. What was one of the names, like Agnes?
Gladys, Agnes,
Agnes we've
Robert.
gotten quite a few times.
Bob.
Well, and like Robert's kind of related to the person that I used to know.
Oh, Albert.
Albert, yeah, Albert was one of them, especially tonight.
Did we get Frank?
We always get Frank when we're here
Oh.
at the house.
You want to talk about the next episode?
Sure.
So next episode, which we'll be recording well, technically tonight now, I'll be sitting down with a guy Kurt knows named Stacy, who's a very interesting spiritualist. I'm not sure how this is gonna go, but I'm kind of excited. Plus, I'll have Kurt there.
And I plan on bringing up what his type of spirituality is based on the fact that I've talked about mine. Pretty sure you all know what Kyler's spirituality at this point is.
Kyler doesn't even know what the spirituality is.
Do you believe in a higher power?
Well, yeah. Do Do I follow it like a normal person though? No. God no. Hell
Well, I
no.
mean, and like,
Fuck no.
all technicality, even me myself, like, I have a higher power. It's just, I don't follow it to a T. I guess in main terms, that would be kind of like how a Christian follows their God.
I consider myself a spiritualist.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be going into depth on his spirituality, some of the paranormal experiences that he's had, and this could be related to his spirituality. It could not be. Just kind of depends on how the episode goes. We always have a general idea of what we're talking about, but we never really kind of go through the details until it just kind of rolls out of our mouth.
Pretty much, it's a, I guess you could say, haunted conversation. See what I did there? Yeah. That's where everyone goes, oh, he did the thing! Yeah, I did the thing. But yeah, that's gonna be our next episode. So, stay tuned, stay haunted. I'm your host, Kyler.
And I am your co-host, Ashley.
Oh, and before we go, this is it. This is us. This is a podcast. Everyone else is going to be a guest.
Yeah, we
because it's
kind
not
of
crowded.
reformed a little bit. We have more of a general, I would say it's more like a cover photo than a logo at this point.
That's coming soon.
We got kind of positions for everybody. Obviously, Kyler's the founder. At this point, I would be kind of considered like an assistant or assistant manager kind of person.
Vice President.
And Jeff is our paranormal investigator. And for the foregoing future, we do have a demonologist, and that is Paxton.
Yep. It's our on-call demonologist.
So we'll see if we have any more join, but for now, this is pretty much all there is.
Feel free to drop an application. We are hiring. Not that we get any money. This is strictly a hobby. This is not a way to make money. There's been talks of how to make money, but I can't make money off the dead. That just seems morally incorrect and really fucked up. There was a team I tried working with at one point, and she was like, yeah, there's gonna be a film crew. And I was like, oh, that'll be interesting. Don't talk to them. I was like, why? She goes, cause you're not authorized to. I'm like, okay, why? She goes, only the founders are gonna do that. I'm like, okay, so if someone comes up to me with a mic and a camera, what, just ignore them? And then there was talks of this old movie set out in like the outskirts of Tucson that they wanted to set up like tours and stuff for. And I was like, this sounds like you're just trying to make money off the dead.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not down for this. And then when I joined the team, she's like, well, you're one of our new guys. I'm like, yeah, I get that. She goes, well, we have to test you first. I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and test me. She goes, well, I need to make sure that you know how to run an EVP recorder. I'm like, dude, not my first rodeo. You've been doing this since I was 14. Like, knock it off. Like, I get wanting to make sure someone's legit, but I've been doing this probably a lot longer than most people. Like, don't come at me like that. And I quit.
Wasn't it the same team that kind of told you, hey, you can't talk about your experiences?
Yeah, I couldn't be on the podcast. I couldn't do my podcast. I was like,
Yeah, right there, I would have
yeah.
been like, okay, bye.
Yeah, I was like, no. Then she clarified, she said, you can't talk about what we do on our investigations. I'm like, I can't talk about investigations on a podcast that has to do with investigations. Like, wouldn't that be free publicity for you? I won't tell you what the name was because that's just rude and disrespectful, but wow.
Yeah.
Apparently she's real popular here in Tucson though, with famous haunts. But I just could not go through with making money off the dead. That just seemed wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even cleansings themselves, like, there are some people who make money off of it, but honestly, to make your life easier, to make your life better, it's kind of like preying off the weak.
Essentially. And then not to mention, what if the cleansing doesn't work? Do you
Right.
get money back? What if they threaten to sue? Like, you're technically a scam artist. And that doesn't sit well with me. I don't want to be that guy. Like, this whole podcast was built on the fact that we started live streaming Ouija board sessions for fun. And I
And
wanna
look what
talk
it's
about it.
turned into today.
Dun dun dun. We've been going, what, 3 years now? I think I've had this podcast.
Yeah, I think so. Wasn't 2017 like one of the first
That's
ones?
when I started Haunted Conversations page on Facebook.
Okay, that's where I'm getting that from.
Yep. Haunted Conversations started because I wanted to put a place where I could put all my live stream videos, where I could put all my evidence videos, all my recordings, all my Dear Diary. I just ran into a ghost today. It was kind of scary. So that happened. But I wanted to put all that stuff in one spot on Facebook, and if it interested people, well, there you go.
And honestly, for those who are kind of looking for, I guess, an experience to go off of in terms of doing ghost hunts, I'm gonna say, not everything that we deal with is super heavy. A
No.
lot of the time, like almost 70% of the time, we almost get nothing. So it's a lot of waiting around, it's a lot of basically kind of feeling when things are going to happen, and
It's a patience test.
it's patience, it's got a lot to do with your own intuition on spiritual happenings, things from beyond the dead. So, I mean, even if you have an experience that you want to be heard out to the world, go ahead and message us, and we will read your experiences live on the podcast.
Send them a message, or I think we had a voicemail phone line at one point, but since Anchor got taken over by Spotify, I don't know if it's on there anymore.
I doubt it. We'd have to
I'll
look into
check
that.
Yeah. And no, just for the record, the episode I did with Papa Roach, that's my dad. My last name is Roach. That is not the singer or the band Papa Roach. I want to make that very clear right now. Papa Roach is what my kids call my father, because he doesn't want to be called Grandpa. So I was like, cool, you're Papa Roach now, and this is your last resort. Dun dun dun. But anyway, until next time, guys, stay haunted. I'm your host, Kyler.
I'm your co-host, Ashley.
Bye.
Bye.
Alright, flick a light on, turn off the UV light. You can't see.